Did you know? The Kremlings weren't originally made for Donkey Kong Country. They were instead created for an unreleased rare title called Johnny Blastoff and the Kremling Armada. This was a pirate-themed point-and-click adventure game with a tropical setting. Not much work was done on the title, but several of its elements made their way into Donkey Kong Country. It was previously thought that the Kremlings were originally made for a Battletoads game, though in 2015, Rare veteran Greg Mayles, who served as a designer for both Battletoads and Donkey Kong, clarified that Battletoads only served as inspiration for their look. Starting in September that same year, Mayles began to share development material from Donkey Kong Country, giving more insight on the Kremlings. Mayles said he had a soft spot for making bad guys that are slightly pathetic, and that crocodiles were a prime candidate for comical villains. Even so, K. Rool and the Kremlings went through a few revisions before this idea was fully realized. During the game's pre-production stage, they took on a more serious military theme, with some Kremling soldiers using weapons like grenades, bazookas, bayonets, and throwing knives. This concept was ultimately dropped, though some elements still appear in the final game, namely with the enemies Clump and Krusha. At this time, the Kremling leader was known as Crud, sporting a more intimidating design by Rare artist James Ryman. According to a naming sheet dating back to March 8, 1994, the character later took on the name Commander K. Rool. It's possible this name was even alluded to in the final game's fake credits, where K. Rool is credited under the title of Commander. K. Rool's final design was done by Greg Mayles' brother, Steve Mayles, with Greg himself supplying the final name as well as the layout for his boss fight. While K. Rool's name is an obvious pun on the word cruel, it's never been stated as to what the K initial stood for. Greg had said the K doesn't stand for anything and was just to form the pun. He also said it was a way of making the character seem more important than he actually was, and it seemed like something K. Rool would do to his name to inflate his own ego. He also jokingly claimed that had he spent more than 5 minutes thinking of a name, he might have come up with something better. Steve Mayles recalled that during Donkey Kong Country's development, there were a few hiccups implementing K. Rool into the game. In a Twitter post, he poked fun at Rare programmer Chris Sutherland, who complained about K. Rool being too big. K. Rool's size meant that each frame of animation ate up a lot of memory. Funnily enough, Sutherland would go on to provide the voice for K. Rool for Donkey Kong 64 a few years later, and his samples were later reused for the Country ports on Game Boy Advance. A recurring theme for K. Rool is his attempts at stealing the Kong's banana hoard, though his motivations have never been very clear. Greg said the game's team never gave much thought about why he'd want to steal the hoard, and it was simply used as an excuse for the Kongs to go after him. The question was even posed to Rare directly on their website, where fans could send in questions and comments to be replied by Lee Loveday, a veteran writer at Rare who also wrote dialogue for the Country games. In an edition of the Rare blog Scribes published on August 25th, 1999, a fan asked why K. Rool would want to steal the hoard, and Loveday gave two possible reasons. Loveday said it was either because K. Rool loves bananas, or because he wants Donkey Kong to starve to death so he can then occupy his cozy treehouse. The former theory is backed up in Donkey Kong Country's instruction manual, which says the Kremlings stole the bananas for their tastiness and nutritional value. However, this was later refuted in the game DK Jungle Climber, where K. Rool states that he hates bananas with a passion. K. Rool has successfully stolen the banana hoard a total of 3 times, once in Donkey Kong Country, once in DK64, and once in the Game Boy title Donkey Kong Land. What makes this attempt the most interesting is the fact that it was staged between K. Rool and Cranky Kong, as noted in the instruction manual. The game's story has Cranky make a bet with Donkey and Diddy, saying that after their first victory against K. Rool, he's certain they couldn't do it again on a less powerful 8-bit console. After they take the bait, Cranky calls up K. Rool and arranges for him to steal the hoard overnight. King K. Rool's design has gone through several changes over the years. In earlier games, his chest and underbelly had a golden texture, and designer Steve Mayles confirmed this was meant to be armor. Though in most games, starting with 2005's DK King of Swing, it was changed to appear more like flesh. K. Rool's tail also fluctuates from game to game as well, sometimes being long to being extremely short to occasionally not being there at all. K. Rool's also well known for changing his persona every now and then. Throughout the original Country trilogy, he went under under 3 different aliases: King K. Rool in the first game, Captain K. Rool in the second, and Baron K. Roolenstein in the third. In Donkey Kong 64, Cranky mentions in the game's manual that K. Rool gave up on disguises this time around, though for his boss fight he adopts the ring name King Crusher K. Rool. The Captain disguise is also referenced in this game, as pictures of Captain K. Rool appear in some of the sunken ships in the Gloomy Galleon level, as well as in a few cabins in Crystal Caves and the museum found in Creepy Castle. This disguise was also a source of some notable misinformation. In Smash Bros. Brawl, K. Rool's trophy description states Captain K. Rool isn't an alter ego of the king, but rather a different character altogether, said to be K. Rool's brother, with the Japanese version specifying the captain as the older of the two. Rumors claimed this was because K. Rool's disguises are treated as separate characters in Japan, but that isn't the case. In the Game Boy Advance version of Donkey Kong Country 2, the game's intro cutscene confirms the two are one and the same. False family connections to K. Rool have been made before this incident. In the Japanese version of DK64, the character K. Lumsy is said to be K. Rool's younger brother, yet they have no relation in any other version of the game. At the end of Country 3, K. Rool claims to be married. He says that his Chaos robot had been assembled from his wife's best pots and pans, and after being destroyed says, "My wife's going to kill me." Some fans questioned whether the line should be considered canon, though in December 1999, Loveday confirmed this line was only a joke. He said it was just a one-off reference to the British comedy duo Vic and Bob, more specifically from their show The Smell of Reeves and Mortimer, where the line was one of the characters' catchphrases. Funnily enough, Donkey Konga's depiction of K. Rool shows him with a ring on his middle finger, possibly in reference to this line. After his appearance in Mario Super Sluggers for Wii in 2008, K. Rool took a long leave of absence from the gaming landscape. When Donkey Kong Country Returns was first shown off in 2010, one of the questions on people's minds was if the Kremlings and their leader would return as well. When gaming outlet IGN spoke to developer Retro Studios about Returns, they simply said there would be no crocodiles in the game. In an interview with Game Trailers during that year's E3, producer Kensuke Tanabe explained the reason behind their exclusion. Tanabe said, "This is something we actually talked about fairly early on with Miyamoto-san, and we were getting together and we're like, what are we gonna do about King K. Rool? Is he coming back? And we thought about it and said, well, does he really need to? Why don't we just come up with something completely new and this time make sure there are no crocodiles in there?" With the game's sequel, Tropical Freeze, in 2014, another new set of enemies were introduced in the Snowmads, led by Lord Frederick. Fans were quick to compare this character with K. Rool, as his boss fight is essentially an homage to both the character and several fights across the original Country trilogy. Frederick's charge and jump attacks are similar to K. Rool's from Country 1, and his attack where he fires ice dragons from his horn parallels Captain K. Rool's blunderbuss from Country 2, alongside K. Rool's cannonball attack. And the segments where the player attacks him from the background is similar to the rematch against Baron K. Roolenstein in Country 3. It was clear that K. Rool was still on the minds of certain circles within Nintendo, though the character would remain unused for the next few years outside of minor cameos and references. In Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, he appears as a trophy and as a costume for the Mii Brawler, and in Mario Odyssey's New Donk City, many locales are named after various Donkey Kong characters, with one of the streets being named K. Rool Avenue. The King made his grand return as a playable fighter in 2018 Smash Bros. Ultimate, marking his first physical appearance in a decade. K. Rool is the third character in the Smash roster to have been created outside Japan, following in line with Rare's own Diddy Kong and Retro Studios' Dark Samus. Smash director Masahiro Sakurai said his inclusion was due to his immense popularity in the Super Smash Bros. Fighter ballot. During this window of voting, fans used the hashtags BringBackKRool and CrocTheVote to have their passion for the character heard far and wide. After the announcement of K. Rool's return, the Twitter handle Kremling Campaigner begun another fan-driven project. A letter signed by thousands of fans was sent to Nintendo in the hopes it would reach Sakurai, thanking him for his devotion to the character. The letter was sent at the end of August 2018, and later that November, Nintendo themselves replied. The letter said it meant the world to see the love for K. Rool, and though Sakurai was too busy to directly respond, Nintendo assured fans he shared the same love for the character that they had shown. Ultimate is also the first game where K. Rool's name is spoken verbally, being pronounced as K. Rool in English and in Japanese as King Cruel. The only other notable time the name was spoken spoken in official media was in the Donkey Kong Country animated series. In the first episode, the name is pronounced both K-Rool and K-Rool, before K-Rool was dropped entirely for the rest of the series. A Twitter user had asked Greg Males his thoughts on K-Rool's interpretation in the cartoon, to which Greg replied, "Let's just say, I'm not a fan." Did you also know that many false rumors were spread about Waluigi appearing in both Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine? Or that a prominent games industry leaker was tricked into releasing fake information about Smash Bros. Ultimate? Check out the Did You Know Gaming video on Mario rumors and Smash Bros. Rumors for more. See you later, alligator.